Hey, folks. Welcome to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about
how we game.
And in today's podcast, Robert and I are going to talk about Pandemic, Fall of Rome. Stick around.
You're listening to the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about how we game.
Welcome back, folks. In today's episode, Robert and I are going to talk about Pandemic, Fall of Rome.
Yep.
But we're going to go into a little bit of a deep dive on Pandemic, Fall of Rome. We're going to talk about our play. So our last play, we're going to talk about the components of the game. We're going to talk about the rules themselves, and we're going to discuss strategies that we may have picked up on the game.
Yep.
Kind of a banter conversation around it, and then also do a contrast and compare of this version of Pandemic to other versions of Pandemic that we've played.
Yeah, we've only played a couple, so we're mostly probably comparing it to the original Pandemic, but yeah.
Along with the Season
The
1
Legacies.
and Season 2.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Yep. So just kind of comparing it to the original Pandemic. But let's start off with some Bgg stats on it. So Rob had pulled them up for me. I wrote them down.
Yep.
So this game, published in 2018.
Yeah.
We have the Z-Man copy of the game. So published by Z-Man Games. And it's currently rated at a 7.7 on the BGG.
It's a pretty good rating, yeah.
It makes it a good game.
Yeah, anything above 7, I would definitely take a long look at, yeah.
It's ranked 370, so it's in the top 500.
It's only 2 years old, so yeah, it's still probably climbing, I would imagine, but yeah.
And yes, and I think it should continue to climb, and we'll talk more about our feelings on this game.
Yep.
It has a weight of 2.47, so it's like right there at that half middleweight.
Yep, almost perfectly in the middle, almost a 2.5 out of 5 point scale they rate that on, yep.
And I think that's pretty spot on.
Yep.
So, quick rules one down on this version of Pandemic. So, what are you doing? In this version of Pandemic, you're playing different characters of the Roman Empire, different either citizens, soldiers, or leaders, or even allies of the Roman Empire.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The Roman Empire has spread out far and wide, and it is now under attack from different barbarian hordes. You've got Huns and Visigoths and Ostrogoths and Vandals, and they're all coming in attacking Rome.
Yeah.
And your goal is to hold off the hordes of barbarians that are trying to attack Rome. The way you win the game is by forging an alliance with every single tribe, or removing all the barbarians of any tribes that you have not forged alliances with.
Right, which is pretty unique to this one. And again, we'll talk compare and contrast a little bit later, but I understand this may be one of the few or maybe the only that kind of gives you a couple of different ways to attack winning the game. So, yeah, kind of mixes it up a little bit.
Right, you can either fight to kill things off the board.
Yep.
Or you can become allies with it, and you can do both.
Yep.
A combination of both.
Combination of both. You could do 3 and 2, 4 and 1. Yep.
How do you lose, right? You lose the game if there are no barbarian cubes left on the board. So each time a barbarian takes a city, you take them from the supply and put them on the board.
Or if you can't take any from the supply, right? Yep.
If you can't take any from the supply, you lose. If we have no player cards left in the game, you lose.
Yep.
If you reach the end of the decline track, you will lose.
Yep.
And if Rome is sacked, you will lose. So how does the game work? In each turn, you're going to take 4 actions. Actions include things such as marching your legions and your character around the board.
Yep.
You can take sail actions by discarding player cards.
Allows you to jump around bigger distances. Yep.
To only the port cities, or
right.
cities that are marked with ports, you can sail around, and you can move legions with you, up to 3 legions with you. Each legion represents an army that you have with you.
Looks like that's about half of the cities I'm roughly saying here, just looking at the board in between us. So, yep.
I feel like it might be a little bit more than half. But
It felt like it, but yeah.
half.
Yeah, about half, yeah.
You can fortify cities by adding forts to those cities. When a city is fortified, another action you can take is to recruit legions in that city.
Yep.
You can choose to take your legions into cities that have barbarians in them, and you can battle those barbarians.
Yep.
You can plot, which means you're sharing cards. So what that means is cards that are in my hand that I'm trying to collect sets to, I can give to my because it's a cooperative. I don't think we've said that. This is a cooperative game.
Yep, definitely cooperative. Yep.
I can share cards with my player friends, so that way they can collect sets in order to do things like forge an alliance. So when you forge an alliance, you're going to discard a number of cards of the same color, which match a tribe, so a barbarian tribe, to try to forge an alliance with that tribe. And then the final action is once you've created an alliance with a tribe, you enlist barbarians from that tribe in the city that you're in. So you can now, once you forge an alliance, turn barbarians into legions.
Legionnaires, yep.
But make them legions, and now you're friends.
Yeah.
So those are the main actions of the game. The way the game works is you take 4 of those actions, and after you take your actions, you will draw 2 player cards. The player cards are going to be the colored cards that you're trying to collect in order to drop down a set of cards so that you can make an alliance with a horde, a barbarian horde. And then in that deck of cards, there's going to be anywhere between 5 and 7 Revolt cards.
Right.
And this is when the game punches you in the face.
Right. Those are kind of like the, what were they? They're not outbreaks. What were they called in the original pandemic? Epidemics, maybe? Yeah.
I think they were epidemics.
Yeah. Okay, yep.
The Revolt card. So what happens with the Revolt cards, it increases the invasion rate, so how many hordes are starting to attack you. It creates a revolt, meaning one city in the deck is going to fill up. It's going to be sacked, or almost sacked, but it's going to fill up with 3 barbarian cubes. And then you're going to intensify and take all the discards out of the discard pile of cities that have had invasions, and you shuffle them and put them on top of the invasion deck.
Right.
So that next time you
cycle right back through,
you go and invade, you're cycling through the same cities that have already gone before.
Yep.
And then at the end of your turn, so those are your 2 cards you drew. At the end of your turn, you then do your invade cards. Depending on the invasion track, you're going to draw a number of city cards from the invasion deck, and those are the cities where barbarians will invade to, or attempt to invade to, if they have a supply chain that links them to that city.
Yep.
And that's when the hurt begins to happen, because you're going to get cubes added to cities that already have too many cubes.
Right.
If you have 3 cubes of a color in a city and a 4th cube is going to be placed in there, it's not an outbreak like in Pandemic Original. It is called a sacking.
Yep.
The city is sacked, and what will happen is you will go down on the decline track, which is one of those losing mechanisms. When you hit the bottom of that,
the Roman Empire goes into decline. Yep.
Every city adjacent to the city that was sacked will receive a cube of that color, which could then trigger more sacked cities.
Right.
If you're putting another color, a 4th color cube of that color in that city.
Right.
So it's really a balance of keeping cities from having too many colored cubes of the same color, more than 3, and finding cards and collecting those sets so that you can turn them in, so you can become allies with those barbarian hordes, as well as the balance of killing the barbarians, right, in order to either clear them off the board or just prevent sacking. So that's kind of the quick rules rundown of how the game plays.
Talking about mechanics, actually, this may be, don't want to jump too out of order, but this may be the good spot to jump in and start talking about differences, kind of comparing and contrasting where this varies from the original Pandemic.
Most folks should be familiar with regular Pandemic.
Right. I was going to say right off the bat here, we could probably talk about that because most people are going to know the regular mechanics. And so one of the big things in this game that was interesting is you have these invasion routes on the board. And I don't know if we have much shot here.
It's more talking about it.
Gotcha. But the routes that where the regular Pandemic, they just come out of a box. You're basically taking them out of a box and you're popping them on to different cities or whatever. In this game, they actually come out of the north. All of the barbarian hordes are coming from the north into the European and Southern European and Western European countries, and they're kind of coming along a prescribed path. So when you pull a card for a city, let's say a green into a certain, let's say to Roma in the game, it doesn't necessarily go directly to Roma. You kind of follow a path back, and then you look for a spot where there has been a green placed before, and then they kind of invade the next city. So unlike regular Pandemic, where they kind of just pop up here and there randomly, as soon as you draw a city card, they just pop straight into that city. Here, there's a lot more predictability. You can kind of follow the path and see where the next one is going to come to, and you can kind of, as you mentioned earlier, one of the ways you lose the game is if Rome or Roma ever get get sacked. And so you're kind of, as they're creeping in along these paths, getting closer and closer to Rome, it builds some tension in the game that, oh, we need to go deal with that, even though it may only be one cube that's coming towards Rome. If we pull another Roma card of green, then it won't go to where it was before. It'll follow that path back. And if that happens to be Rome, it'll go straight into Rome. So you can kind of predict that in-game condition and kind of fight for Rome and hold them off of Rome. So,
to me, it's almost accurate, right? Like historically accurate, because the tribes are going to come from their regions of where they tend to be,
sure,
and they're going to follow the path that they historically attack through,
right? And
what you're going to find is it's almost like a leapfrogging. Right, so as they leave their supply center in the north, so the main supply, that trail will start to add cubes of that color to each city on that prescribed trail.
Right.
But they can't go farther than the last cube that's already there.
Sure, yeah. They follow that path in. They're following that supply route in. So unlike normal pandemic where they can kind of just pop up randomly in the middle of nowhere, you didn't have a problem before, and all of a sudden now you've got some cubes somewhere that they shouldn't be. Again, this is a little more predictable in being able to see the path of where they're going to go. So, yeah.
Yeah, and what they're going to do is they're going to start in their supply center, and they will slowly creep closer and closer down that trail to Rome, which is their main objective. Mm-hmm. Very much unlike normal pandemic, which just kind of throws them out on the board. Now the revolt, when a revolt occurs, they have a revolt step, and in the revolt step, you're going to draw the bottom card of the barbarian deck,
which is similar to regular pandemic, right?
Yep. And this will get 3 cubes pretty much anywhere on the board.
Right.
So that one
doesn't follow the progression of following the lines. When you draw that revolt card, they're automatically just going to pop up there.
And 3 of them.
And and again, that's same as regular pandemic when you had the epidemics that we'd popped 3 in there. But and that is an interesting mechanic. I'm just kind of thinking historically or whatever. You could have these revolts that you don't know that they're there, that they're coming, and all of a sudden they pop up somewhere. So,
but now what it does is it gives them a foothold.
Yeah.
So the next time an invasion card occurs, there's a foothold deeper down that trail.
So they can be further down that path,
much closer to Rome.
Right.
So it's like it really changes our perspective.
Yep.
It changes our perception of where we should be putting our attention to.
Yep.
Because although there may not be anything in the 7 cities between the Vandals and Rome, but now there's one next to Rome, so we need to go finish that off and fight that. So it kind of changes our priorities.
Changes your focus. One of the other things this is, and we've noticed that this is a smaller, the board size is the same physically, but the number of spaces on the board is less. I haven't actually counted how many this has versus regular pandemic, but it's certainly less than the number of cities that's in regular pandemic. And so it is a tighter game. It's a smaller game. Travel is more difficult in this,
is good.
Right? Than regular pandemic. In pandemic, you could fly between disease centers,
research
centers. There you go, and you could jump back and forth across the board.
You can even just fly, take a chartered flight.
If you have the card and they're in the city, just discard that, and you could jump either to that city or from that city to anywhere you want.
I don't know, 800 BC or 800 AD.
A little different,
or we may not have a plane yet.
Yeah, well, you can still get around quickly with the sailing. The sailing action would allow you to go from one end to the other, but it doesn't. The drawback is it doesn't let you go to the interior of Europe. Again, it's going to be all the coastal. It's going to be the outside edges.
The port cities.
Right, so just around the outside of the board. So you still have that mechanic to get you there, but there is a lot more marching. There's a lot more time spent just moving from place to place than in the regular pandemic. And so, we haven't played all the roles. We played twice. We played twice today and kind of ran through it. So we read through all the roles. But if I remember, none of the roles were like they had one in pandemic where you could just fly somebody. You could control somebody else's pawn and move them when it wasn't their turn. The operator, or you could fly them
dispatcher, I think it was.
Dispatcher. That's it. Yep. I didn't remember there being a role like that in this one. So yeah.
Well, I mean, there are no planes.
Right.
There's no dispatching. There's no radios.
Yeah. There was no way to sail anybody in this one, like there would be in the regular pandemic. So.
I felt hamstrung compared to regular pandemic in the movement side of it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, but again, it is a tighter board. It is smaller. There's fewer cities. So that kind of is the balance there, that it's there's fewer cities. And
there's a controlled path, so you have more idea of where they're going to go.
Right, where you need to be.
Prepare your defenses faster.
Right.
Speaking of defenses, instead of research stations, we have forts.
Yep.
Forts allow you to recruit legions.
Right.
So the legions are the tokens that are used to actually go do your battles. You can't battle if you don't have a legion with you.
Yeah.
And unlike removing cures, right? So in regular pandemic, you're going to take a cube off when you cure something, right? When you're taking the cure action. In the battle action, we get what I love.
Oh,
you get
dice.
some dice.
Oh, dice hate me. Yeah.
In this version of Pandemic, there's actually dice. So when you battle, you're going to roll these dice, 6-sided dice. And on the 6-sided dice, there's going to be 2 symbols of killing a barbarian cube. There's going to be 2 symbols or 1 symbol of killing a barbarian cube, but losing one of your legions that you brought with you. And then there's a symbol of killing 2 barbarian cubes, losing 1 legion.
Yep.
But then there's the sad one, which is just losing a legion. You didn't kill any barbarians, but you lost one of your legions.
Yep. Just straight out loss.
And what's really cool about this edition
Special
is
powers.
the golden eagle, the Roman eagle. The Roman eagle, when you roll the Roman eagle symbol, each character that you're playing in the game has a special ability attached to that symbol that you can trigger.
Yep, print down on the bottom of the card. Yep.
Which I thought they were all going to be awesome. However,
all positive or at least helpful. Yeah.
right. We found out that no, one of the characters that Rob had, Vestalis.
Vestalis, yeah, it sounds right. Yeah. And hers again, this was the very first game we played, and we started out just assuming, oh, this is cool, this is going to be a good thing. So I didn't even look at it until we started playing, and I rolled it the first time. And because the character Carlos played, we had looked at his, and his automatically, when he rolled it, he got to remove 2.
I killed 2 barbarians.
Killed 2 barbarians just flat out. Yep. So like, oh, these are going to be nice little boosts. So when I rolled mine the first time and I read it, remove 1 legion from your city. So it actually kills one of the good guys. It kills one of the legions instead of helping out. So it actually discouraged my character from fighting, and we were about a quarter of the way, I'd say, probably into that game before we realized, oh, this character really isn't cut out for fighting. She's more of a support.
Yes, that's exactly what she is.
Yeah, exactly, a support character. She had a cool thing just to mention during the setup, something I haven't seen in any of the other pandemics. Again, I haven't played all of them. There's so many different ones, but at the beginning of the game, in regular pandemic, you have these event cards, and I think in pretty much all the pandemics, there's been these event cards, and you normally draw out a certain number of them and put them in the deck.
In the player deck.
Right, in the player deck. So there'll be cards as you're drawing city cards. You may run into these cool one-time events that you can pop. In this one, she takes all of the ones that aren't pre-seeded into the deck. So in a 2-player game, we played it only at 2 players. And the game plays 2 to 5. I don't know if we've mentioned that yet. So it is 2 to 5.
1 to 5.
I'm sorry, there is a solo.
Setup.
You're right,
Yep.
1 to 5. Right. But in this one, so in ours, you mixed 4 event cards with 2 players into the stack when you shuffled them up into the city cards and everything. This one, she takes all of the event cards that are not used and puts them face down in front of her for her own little event deck. And then she can discard a card at any time in a city that she's in. She can discard any of the city cards that she has of a particular color that match the city that she's in to just draw an event card and replace it with that. And so, and that's not even an action. She can just do that for free anytime she wants to ditch a card. You can just throw away a city card, pick up an event, and then you could potentially have 7 to 8. I think that first game we probably had about 7 or 8 events that we ended up having between the 2 of us because of her abilities. So that was kind of really cool.
And when we played without her, we really felt the lack of her.
Right.
Because it felt like there's only 4 events in a 2-player game.
Yeah.
So we didn't get any events for the first 3/4 of the game, it felt like,
right,
before we actually got any events to use. So without her, you can kind of feel missing what the events can do, which are big game changers.
There's about, I would say probably about 40 cards in the deck, and then only 4 events in there in a 2-player game. So that's right, 1 out of every 10.
But that gives her a huge supply of unused event cards in a 2-player game.
Right. Yeah.
So she was really cool.
Yeah. And the trade-off though is that again you are burning those city cards, so cards that you would use to then either make alliances with the bad guys or convert bad guys after you ended up making the alliance with them. She'd be throwing those cards away to get the events. So there definitely was a trade-off. So it wasn't all good, but yeah.
But I mean, your favorite part here, Robert, it's all about the theme.
Oh, of course.
She's not a fighter. She doesn't fight.
Yeah.
She sits in the back, and if she has to fight, the odds are you're going to lose legions.
Yeah, yeah. And
She doesn't lead legions.
that first time we played, we just didn't quite know all the mechanics. We didn't know how to use it, but once we got about halfway through that game, we realized, whoa, this is a really powerful combo because your character, which one was it exactly?
I was Magister Militum.
Okay.
And when he did a battle action, I could reduce the number of legions I lose by 1.
Yeah.
So that was huge. He was all about fighting.
Yeah, yours was definitely fighty. So mine was definitely not fighty. If we would have gotten 2, there are a couple of other completely support type roles. And so I imagine the game would be pretty rough if you had 2 only supports, although they all have pretty cool abilities. But having yours be probably the most fighty of the game, and then me having probably one of the biggest support characters in the game, would have been a very powerful combination had we been a little more familiar with the game. So,
Yeah, we lost that one.
yeah, we played it on standard, and we played it twice, and we've lost twice. The second time was really close to winning.
I keep telling you got to stop saying we're going to get
We
this.
got this. We got this.
No, we don't. Now, what are some of the other differences, compare and contrast, from original Pandemic we can think of? There's that battle mechanism, so you're actually having to fight, so it's not guaranteed that you're removing cubes.
One of the neat things with this was the cities themselves. Many of the cities, I'd say, looking at the board right in front of me again, about half of them are multicolored. And so in regular Pandemic,
Yes.
yeah, all of your cities were one color or another color. I think there was 5 colors in original Pandemic, which there's 5 colors in this one as well. But this one, a lot of the cities have like Roma itself is the only one that has all 5. So in the deck there'll be a blue Rome card, there'll be a white Rome card, a green, a gray, black, or orange. And so you have 5 cards in the deck that potentially can add units to Roma, but they would be different colors, which is good because
Different tribes would end up in Rome.
because they don't pop and do the invasions until there are 3 of the same color. But that was really, really neat is that, again, a lot of the cities, a lot of them are half. They're half one color and half another color. There's a couple that are 3.
Yep.
And then there's the Roma that's...
Yeah, Constantinople, which ended up being like second Rome historically later.
Okay.
It's 3 different colors.
Yep.
So that was a hotbed of the Eastern Roman Empire. But I like how they themed that because it limits where the barbarian tribes go to.
Yeah.
Right, so like the Huns, I noticed, really stayed away from the port cities.
Right.
You know,
they
Huns
were definitely interior.
more interior, which is they were more nomadic.
Yep.
You know, they were horse. They're not going to go on the water.
Yeah.
Right? And then you had other tribes like the Vandals. They were going all over the perimeter. Right,
Yeah.
They ran the perimeter of the board to the south, trying to come in from the south.
Must have been a lot more seafaring.
Right, because they came in through Syracuse up into Rome, from Carthage up into Rome.
Yeah, almost all of theirs. I'm looking at the board were ports. Almost all of them. Just a couple of them are interior, but yeah, they definitely were more perimeter around the outside. So
I found that interesting how they themed that out well.
Right.
The decline track is like the outbreak track.
Right. Yep.
However, in this version, what they've done with the outbreak track or the decline track. How many spaces, Rob?
It's 8. Actually, I was just counting. It's the same as regular Pandemic. Yep.
In this outbreak track called the decline track, what they did is they took the player card, the event cards, and they give you a ability with the event. And you may choose to decline one notch to improve that ability.
That was really cool. Yeah.
That is another decision point in the game that I really liked.
It was, because early on we felt like, hey, we can, once we got 3 or 4 rounds in and we didn't have any quote-unquote outbreaks or declines, we were feeling pretty good. And it was like, oh, well, now we can start using these events and taking one step on the decline meter to do the even better event. And I think we got probably a little cocky with that, because both games we ended up losing was because of the declines. We didn't even really come close to running out of cards.
No, we had plenty of player cards.
Player deck. So
Pandemic regular, we tend to go down to the last hand.
Yep. Real close.
Last draw. But this one, we never really got that low. We lost because of declines. But
Yeah.
I think it's because of that temptation to use
those better events.
use that event for its better ability by spending the decline. That felt good.
Yep.
It felt good that we got the opportunity to make that decision.
Yeah, there was one more decision, which made it a little more interesting. I'm still a big fan of the regular Pandemic, but it made it a little more interesting. One more decision point of what you're going to do.
Outside of that, it's very similar to regular Pandemic.
I don't know if we talked a whole lot about the Alliance versus Eradication.
Oh, that was nice.
Yeah. So again, there's the 5 hordes in the game.
5 different colors.
Right, 5 different colors, and then you can choose to win the game by a combination of either at any particular time having alliances. Well, you could have alliances with all 5,
Right.
Or you can be any that you don't have alliances with. You can have them not present on the board. So if you have all their cubes off the board, for any of the ones that you don't currently have alliances with, you win the game. And so that was the interesting mechanic there of in regular Pandemic, usually you have to completely cure the 5 diseases. You have the ability to, and that was one other big difference here, is that you could eradicate one. But in this one, you don't have that option. You can never eradicate. The hordes are going to come no matter what. You can never stop them from coming out on the board, so they're going to continuously come out. But you can, like in regular Pandemic, you could, if you cured it, after you cured it, if you had gotten all the cubes off the board, those cubes would never populate anymore.
Right. You never got that feeling of we're done with this color.
Right. This one, they just keep on coming. So.
Right, because there was this almost this moment where you can breathe in regular Pandemic, where you've completed eradicated a disease, and every time a card came up for that, if I'm right, that card goes in the box. No, it stays in the game.
Yep,
stays in the game. So you were kind of hoping to see the color.
Right. You wanted those to come up because they just did nothing.
Right, they did nothing. It was like a moment to breathe.
Right.
In this game, although you've made an alliance
Yep.
with a horde, if you don't have someone down there converting those cubes into legions,
Yep.
in other words, controlling
Yep. They
those hordes,
can still turn on you.
the barbarians are going to do what barbarians do. I mean,
Yep.
they just do what they do.
Yeah, when you leave them alone and to
They
their own
sack
devices, they just start taking stuff over again. So so that's a different big mechanic here in that you can never, like I say, never stop them from coming. They're always coming. But then again, you've got that trade-off that you don't have to cure, quote unquote, cure or make alliances with all 5 of them. You can
Just kill them.
Right. You can just you could make alliances with 4 and then just eradicate one, and then you'd be good. So
What I liked about that system of the alliances is each tribe
Yep.
has a different number of cards that you must discard to make that alliance. So unlike in regular Pandemic,
Right.
where it's all the same, I think it's 5 cards
5 normally,
of
yep.
a color to cure a color.
Right.
Here, the Vandals are 5, the Visigoths are 5, the Huns are 4. You need 4 to make an alliance with the Anglo-Saxons, and you need 3 to make an alliance with the Ostrogoths. Now, the Ostrogoths, although you only need 3, they only start with like 14 cubes.
Yeah, it's a lot less. So they're
Where the Anglos are, I think Anglo-Saxons are at 24 cubes in the game.
yeah.
So you can see that there's this range of how many cubes are on the board, how many cards they have in the player deck, right? So there's a different number of player cards.
Yep.
I think there's only 6 of the blue cards.
It was 6, I think, yeah.
Of the Ostrogoths. So you need 3 to make an alliance,
Right.
but there's 13 of the Vandals, and you need 5 to make an alliance there. So it's that we used to count a lot of cards in regular Pandemic.
Right. Yep.
To say, okay, we've burned this many, we have this many left, so we can make a decision on burning it or not. I think those decisions were more varied here.
Yeah.
Because with gray, we were like, okay, there's plenty of gray cards in the deck, but every time we had a blue card, we were like, oh, there's only 6 blue cards in this deck, Rob.
Yeah.
You can't just burn this card.
And it helps you guide those decisions too as you're playing, because again, to get 5 cards of either the Visigoths or the Vandals, so needing 5 of those to make the alliance. If they're not coming out onto the board, if you're not drawing those out of the draw pile when you populate bad guys on the board or the barbarians, then you feel like probably those, maybe you just want to eradicate them at some point and just try to keep them in control, wipe them out, not necessarily go for the alliance on those. So that was an interesting mechanic. Yeah, that was definitely different. So, and then I don't know historically, my ignorance on the historical era, but being that some of them have more and are harder to control than others, that I would assume that was probably a historical move to try to work that into the game.
Yeah, they did a great job of that.
Yep.
So let's talk about the components.
Components, yep.
The dice are gorgeous.
Dice are nice. Yep, they're not.
First thing I'm looking at.
Yeah, they're not ironed on. They're engraved, so they're nice engraved dice.
Yep, there's no stickers here, and they're embossed with the color in there. So
Right.
beautiful looking dice, beautiful symbology on the dice, easy to tell what you rolled.
If you have to add dice, I guess that's the way to do it. But
And it's kind of an ivory color, not a white. So
Yeah.
it kind of feels red, Roman red on it with an ivory bone
Yep.
feel to it. So it feels authentic to the time period.
Yep.
The board itself, linen finish. I think we did an unboxing of this game, William and I, so you can see more in detail of the images that we talked about.
Yep.
The board has great components. I think the cards really stood out to me in this game for component quality, linen finished.
Yeah, the linen finish is nice. The artwork, I'd say, could use a little help. It's not real. I mean, it's not bad, but it's kind of generic.
I would say the artwork on the character cards is more of an oil painting.
Okay.
So it's kind of maybe kind of an oily painting to it.
Yeah, a couple of them more than others.
It's kind of washed out. Right?
Yeah.
But the event cards to me were like pencil sketches.
Yeah, those were nice.
And the artwork on those are gorgeous.
Yeah, they're like kind of almost like a sepia tone or something. They're not black and white, but they're not color. They're kind of a grays and browns. So yeah, that was really cool looking. It looks like a sunset on the in the Roman countryside. So yeah,
the backs of the player cards are the Roman Legionnaire shield.
Okay,
so you got this red shield with the silver trim and the gold, artwork on it. So it's just gorgeous. If when I'm holding them and drawing from them, I feel like I'm taking shields, which are player cards. The Barbarian cards are Barbarian shields, so they've got this very horde-ish coloring to it, like a bright greens, bright blues, artwork that you would imagine that a barbarian tribe at the time would be using to draw.
And I'm just noticing, that it's all 5 of the colors. It's got the orange and the gray and the blue and the green, and all the colors of the different cubes.
All in that one shield, and the card is set up like a shield.
Right. Definitely a cube game. The base game, I'm sure there's upgrades you can get, but the base game comes with cubes for the barbarians, so they're just your standard.
Your favorite?
Yeah, my favorite. I love Euros and cubes.
But you know what I love about these cubes?
They're
wood.
Yeah.
Right? That's not the plastic of the second on edition of Pandemic, right? When they redid Pandemic,
the acrylic
they
plastic
went to
thingies.
the plastic. Which, I mean, plastics, it's clear, it's pretty, but I was always a fan of the wooden cubes in the set that I have.
And especially with this time period, I mean, it's back to wood, which makes sense. So, yeah.
The forts are wood. They're milled. They're easy to tell that they're forts, almost like the research stations, but just kind of notched out to look like a fort.
Yeah.
The symbols or the tokens to represent each of the tribe are gorgeous.
Yep.
Chunky wood components, custom cut for each logo that goes with each of the tribes,
right? And
then silk printed with white of their logo image to match. I thought these chunky components were beautiful.
Yep, and the legions are really nicely done too. They actually made those not cubes, so again they are
meeples,
custom cut
little
meeples,
Roman meeples.
Yeah, little Roman meeples. So, but they're cool. They got the little Roman helmets with the I don't know what that was, what they used on top. They're not feathers, but
that
bristle. It looks like cleaning my floors. A little broom,
like the red broom,
exactly on the top. So kind of cute, but
that headgear.
Yeah, that very nice. So, but yeah, they could have just made those cubes, and it was nice touch that they made those legions stand out from the barbarian cubes. So
cards are great. I mean, overall component quality is just flat out great.
Yep.
Makes me want to play this game more.
Right.
Because it's just nice to look at, nice to touch.
Absolutely.
Yep. We'll talk, we talked about compare and contrast. We did the components. Let's talk a little bit about our last plays of it, right? So kind of go through in our most recent play, our most last play. I was this was cool because she's an ally of the Roman Empire. She's a barbarian fighter.
Yeah.
And in her abilities, what she does is not only can she beat up on barbarians, her name was Regina Foderata. Her abilities had to do with converting barbarians into legionnaires.
Right.
So that's what she did. Not only did she beat up on barbarians, she also ended up having more legionnaires each time she showed up to a place.
Right. I'm just noticing here in the roll cards, half of them are male and half of them are female, so they did a good job of making sure they included both, and
a female fighter,
right?
Regina Foderata, which is the one I had. She's the female fighter.
Yeah. When you threw that card down in front of you first time, I just assumed it was a male, but then you mentioned immediately that it was a female. I was like, oh, cool, all right. Well,
and then I had
the Mercator, and her ability. She was again kind of a support character. And There was a role in the
I think it
regular
was the researcher.
in regular Pandemic that allowed you to exchange cards. And so usually you can exchange cards with somebody. If you're both in the same city, you can exchange the card of that city.
Which is very, very
limiting.
Yes.
Yeah, it's tough to get both of you in the same city of where that card is to be able to hand it off to allow somebody to cure, or in this case, to make the alliance. But this one allowed me to, as long as I was in a city of that color with another player, we didn't have to be in the city. If it was just a green city and I needed to get rid of a green card or get a green card, I could exchange that with the other person as long as we were both in a green city. So
it allowed you to collect more cards right off the bat. That was our plan on that play, was to give you more cards so that you can create the alliances because of her second ability.
Right, and the second ability was that she could make the alliance without having to, and this is something we didn't explain, but normally when you do an alliance, after you have the number of cards required for the alliance, you need to be in a city with a cube of the color that you're trying to ally with, which makes sense. You need to have a diplomat there or somebody that you can make that alliance with, but she was able to do it without being in a city with that colored cube. I still needed to be in that colored city, so as long as I was in any green city and needed to make that green alliance, I didn't have to have a ambassador or whoever there from the other side. I could go ahead and make it, I guess, remotely would be the thematic idea. So
it would be writing a letter.
Yeah, writing a letter, which is what she's doing in the picture. Yeah, she's writing a letter. So
so she's more of a diplomat,
right?
She and to that point, her eagle ability even spoke to that.
Going to jump over to there
when she battles.
Yep,
if she rolls the eagle symbol.
Yep. She removes one of each, and so she loses a legion that she brought with her, but then she also defeats a barbarian. So it's kind of you said a diplomatic solution to that, one on each side, and everybody's happy. So eye for an eye.
You go home, and you go home.
Yeah, exactly. So. So that was, again, another kind of support character. And again, you had the fighting character, so that was interesting the two times we played.
Yeah, whenever I roll the eagle after a battle, I could remove a barbarian from the city that I'm in, and if I did so, which I did in the game, I can add a legion to that city.
Yep. So you're kind of converting, I see.
Yeah. So effectively, rolling the eagle symbol just converts them into legionnaires, barbarians into legionnaires.
Right.
So our plan was that I'd be feeding Robert cards because Rob would be able to go to a city with me, and I'd be able to give him a color card, but not specifically that city card.
Yeah.
He can then forge those alliances without having to be in those cities that have those cubes.
Remotely, yep.
And then I would use my ability where once per turn, I can enlist barbarians without spending a card.
Right.
And that was kind of the plan is you create the alliances.
Make the alliance, yep.
And then I show up and say, hey, bro.
Convert them over.
Why don't y'all come over? I mean, we got cookies.
Yeah, exactly.
And it felt like it worked. Yeah. It felt like it was working.
Right. And the other cool thing about yours, and you probably mentioned this, I might have missed it, but is about you being able to drag the barbarians with you.
Yeah, normally when you take a move action,
right,
you can move up to 3 legions with you as you move. My character can swap out a legion for a barbarian cube. Right. So I'm able to kind of move barbarian cubes around with me as I'm traveling, along with moving legions with me.
And combinations, I mean, you can take 1 legion. In the game, normally you can only carry 3 legions with you.
3.
Up to 3. You have 1, 2, or 3. This, you could mix it up. You could carry 2 barbarians and 1 legion, 2 legions and 1 barbarian, but it allowed us to strategically, you were able to pick up a few in cities that might be getting ready to pop because they had too many. Yes. Instead of stopping and having to fight them, you could just move what you wanted to do anyway and kind of drag them and spread them out over the board and leave them as you went, or take them.
Try to convert them later.
Right, convert them later or drag them with you and fight them all in one place in one big dice roll instead of having to do little ones. So, yeah.
Yeah, that was one of the strategies that I did with her was I would go into a city that had, and I had no legions with me, so I couldn't fight.
Right.
But I drug the barbarians with me to the next city
where you had some legions waiting.
Legions waiting.
Yeah.
And then I used those legions to battle them.
Yeah. Fight them there.
Hey guys, why don't y'all come with me over here? Let's go check out this city.
Right.
And then placata.
Right. Yep.
Hit them with some dice.
Yeah, and that worked pretty well. I mean, again, it got us out of a couple situations.
I think our plan worked great because we had how many alliances did we do?
We ended up with 4 alliances.
4 out of the 5.
And we only had, I think it was 5 orange cubes on the end of the board, so 5 of the Anglo-Saxons.
After making our 4th alliance, we only had 5 orange cubes left on the board.
Right.
In, I think, 4 cities.
Right.
3 or 4 cities.
4, yep. Yep.
And I thought we were...
Yeah, decline was the least of our worries. We think we had 4 declines down. We had 4 more that we could still sitting on a pad, but we all of a sudden Western Europe blew up. So...
Well, what it was is our our perspective changed. At least my perspective changed. My thought was, okay, we've now allied with all of the tribes.
Yeah.
Let's go destroy Orange Tribe, eradicate him, and we win the game.
Right.
So we all move east. We're in Spain, we're in France, we're in England, doing our battling, and the entire time, after each turn, we're drawing, and our invasion track is up. So we're invading 4 cards per round.
Right.
All of that Eastern Europe begins to blow up. The Huns, the Visigoths, and the Ostrogoths. Like we said earlier, although you make an alliance with them, they don't go away.
Yeah.
The barbarians do what barbarians do.
Keep coming, yep.
And that just popped like popcorn.
Right.
And our declines ran out before we had an opportunity to destroy the oranges.
Yeah, it was Eastern. I said Western, but yeah, it was definitely Eastern. So it was those blues that really ended up sealing it for us. All of a sudden, the Ostrogoths, which were never a problem during the game for us.
The smallest tribe in the game.
Yep. And it was just the way the cards came out. That's really kind of what it came down to, which is what Pandemic almost always comes down to. But it was just...
It was also our strategy change because we went from spread out and controlling both sides of the board.
Well, if they wouldn't have come out so quick, though, I think, again, we could have blitzed, which is, I think we were on the right strategy. I mean, I still think, I know you think maybe we should have spread out, but the way they were over here, the oranges were popping up behind sometimes. And so being able to have one of us go back and fight behind while the other kind of pressed forward.
Popping up the pop-ups.
Right. I think if I would have come over and fought in Eastern Europe, I think you would have had a lot more to do. You would have had to have circled back around 2 or 3 times to
And thinking back now, hindsight 2020, that still we had plenty of cards left in the deck.
Yeah, we had time. Yeah,
so we had opportunity to draw out some oranges in hopes that you would be able to pull an alliance out of your hat.
Yeah,
maybe send you to the right side, the east side of the board, and have you kind of controlling some of those, putting forts down, putting legions down. What's nice about this game, and we didn't talk about it in the compare and contrast. In this game, if you have a legion in a city, and a barbarian cube enters that city, that barbarian cube, instead of being placed, destroys all the legions in that city.
Yep.
So there's a way to shield cities from getting cubes.
Right.
Even better is when you have a legion in that city and a fort or a player pawn.
Right.
The city is now even more fortified. The cube, instead of destroying all of the legions in that city, will only destroy 1 legion and not be placed.
Right.
So you can have a fort and 3 legions, and that'll stop 3 cubes from being placed in that city.
Yeah. It's similar to, not to give too many spoilers or any spoilers hopefully away, but in the Pandemic Legacy games, there were mechanics that
kind
were...
of shield or block cities to prevent cubes from dropping. We'll stop there.
Right, yeah, so no specifics, don't want to have any spoilers, but yeah, there were ways later in the game, after you got into the game a little bit, where you could leave a city and have some protection still, which the normal Pandemic you don't.
But this one comes with it right off the bat.
Right, yep.
And that could have been a thing we could have done, is have you go over there, build forts, add legions over there to protect them, to kind of cushion those areas, right? Kind of sprinkling them around as you run around while I try to finish off the oranges.
Yeah.
I think we just saw like a fat kid seeing cake.
Yeah. There was a light at the end of the tunnel. We just would blitz it. Let's knock those oranges out and be done.
There was 5 cubes left. I mean, how hard would that have been to kill 5 cubes?
A couple of bad dice rolls, and again, bring dice into a game like this, into a Euro gamer like me. Yeah, dice tend to mess things up. So. But yeah, it is what it is. It was a combination of the cards, a couple bad dice rolls. I know you were hot with the dice for a while, then a couple of bad rolls kind of left us wondering how are we gonna do this. So,
and I think the lack of event cards too. Really, I think we only had 2 events.
I think 2. I think there were 2 in the deck
by the end of the game.
Yeah, there were still 2 in the deck when we quit.
And events are game changers.
Yeah.
So I think that all in all, that last play, and even the play before that left me wanting more.
Yeah.
I'm not ready to say that this is my favorite Pandemic because I am still a huge fan of Pandemic base.
Yeah, I like the original. Yeah,
but I love the way they combine the history in this, the artwork, the theme, the battling, the dice chucking.
Yeah, the differences in the mechanics really mixes it up because we played a lot of Pandemic just between the two of us. We played in Pandemic tournaments, the elimination tournaments, and we've done really pretty well in one of them. One of them went not so well, but big mistake. But cost us the game on that one. But
Reading, it's fun to
yeah, reading. We messed up a rule and got booted out. But in any case, this being just a change up on the system, and we both have played Pandemic Legacy Season 1 and 2.
Yep.
We've played the original Pandemic, and then I think this is the only other Pandemic I've played.
This is for me too.
Okay, so we're on the same
I've
footing
not
there.
had
Yeah.
any desire to play any other Pandemic. The themes really haven't stood out to me.
Yeah, a lot of them haven't been real interesting, real exciting, but
Right.
this one, the time period and things was interesting. I know, especially to you, so that kind of got you to purchase it, and it was ranked really high. I mean, when we look at people's rankings of the different Pandemics, this one keeps showing up near the top. So.
And it also keeps showing up in my historical groups that I'm in on Facebook. You know, it's shown up there, and I think it's done a great job of adding history to a wonderful Euro cooperative game.
Yeah.
So all in all, my recommendation is that this is a must play.
Yeah, I would say must play.
Must play.
If you like Pandemics.
And if you like history, it's a must own.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah.
It's
And I would say it's definitely one of the top. I think I've played probably, ranking wise, probably pretty much the top 4. I mean, there may be one other that's up there, but this is the 4 that I've played have been ranked at the top. And there's a reason I played them, because I knew beforehand that they were ranked pretty high. But these have all been good. So I'm going to touch on the others at some point and try to play them all. But these first 4 that I've played have been real good.
Can you think of anything that a detractor
Similar,
or something you would want different in it that I just can't?
No, I mean, it's a pretty game. I mean, you could, like I say, you could upgrade the cubes for the barbarians to different kinds
if somebody sold that.
Oh, I'm sure they are. I mean, you got to know that there's somebody out there, Meeple Source, Meeple Realty. Somebody's got
Little barbarian meeples.
yeah, I got some little barbarians just to differentiate the different tribes.
I guess the hardest part for me was pronouncing the names of the cities.
Yeah, that is definitely. Actually, I was going to hit on that earlier, but yeah, I can't pronounce probably half of them on the board. So a lot of them we were just kind of making up names and stumbling through it. Yeah.
After a while, I kind of knew what you meant when you started to begin trying to say it.
Yeah,
I knew
yeah.
exactly what city you
Yeah,
meant.
which one you were talking about. And even a simple one, I know Caesar Augusta, we didn't have that one pop up until well into our second game, but we were so used to just kind of stumbling over them. We were making up names even for that one, even though that one was pretty easy. So yeah,
That would be the one thing.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, on that note, I think that wraps us up for our deep dive discussion on the game of Pandemic Follow Rome by Matt Leacock and Paolo Mori, published by Z-Man Games. I'm Carlos.
I'm Rob.
And we're the Beans and Dice Podcast, a podcast about
How we game.
Catch us on the next one. Thanks for watching,
Thanks
folks.
for watching.
Bye, everybody.
Thanks for watching the Beans and Dice podcast. Don't forget to like and subscribe.